Yo, what's up everyone? It's Jack here. I just want to make a video about the meta check-in post-Atlanta, and Monterey is actually about to finish as well. It's Gardevoir versus Blissey Walls in the final. Blissey Walls isn't free giraffe, it's just Cornerstone and Blissey and a bunch of healing. It's a little different than the Blissey Walls that we may be accustomed to from Japan, but that is the final in Monterey, so I'm going to look at the meta in Monterey and also do my analysis from that. So I want to start doing these after every regional because it's fun, and also I think it's good to know how I think and how I assess the meta and things like that, and maybe give you some insight that you might otherwise not know about how you go about assessing the meta and picking a deck for a tournament, no matter what size the tournament's going to be. It could be a league challenge, it could be a league cup, could be a weekly local, it could be regional, it could be an international, SPE, whatever. So the first thing I want to talk about is net decking, right? That's a big thing, right? Everyone net decks. Let's be honest, everyone net decks. But there are some disadvantages and advantages to net decking. Let's start with the disadvantages just to get those out of the way. So top players will always be a step ahead if you net deck because, well, you're net decking the top players, and the top players, unless that list is absolutely perfect, they're not going to be playing the same list. They're going to be playing a list that has adjusted to the meta, or at least what they think the meta is going to be, and they're just always going to be a step ahead of you if you only rely solely on net decking for making a deck choice or a deck list. Also, opponent will know your counts. Your opponent will know the counts of your deck list. So say, for example, you net decked Andrew Hendricks, or I guess his testing group's Dragapult list from Atlanta, second place list, then once you start, you play that on like a luxurious cape, right? Then people are going to know, like, that's likely Andrew Hendricks' list. So, okay, I know he plays a rescue board. I know he plays 3 counter catcher, 2 boss, 4 Iono, 2 Jacques, 2 Arven, a 4-4-3 Dragapult, a 2-2-1 Dusknoir. So if you see a Dusknoir in the discard and 2 Night Stretchers and you're being offensive toward their Dragapult, you might be able to play into, well, it's going to put them into a bind if they use their last Night Stretcher for Dusknoir. So I can actually target things a little bit more aggressively because they need both Dusknoir and Dragapult on the board, and it's going to be even harder for them to get both of that if they're playing Andrew Hendricks' list and they have both Dusknoir and 2 Night Stretchers in the discard. Some plays like that, right? But Andrew Hendrick also plays a switch, so if you're in a bind and you're like, maybe I can gust something up and they can't retreat and it'll buy me some turns, well, Andrew Hendricks plays a switch and a rescue board, so that play isn't as strong if you know what your opponent is playing in their deck. If your opponent net deck a deck like Andrew Hendricks' Dragapult list, or whoever the group that Andrew Hendrick tests with, they all have the same list. So at least for me, if I'm kind of short on time, I maybe don't have time to test, I'm getting into a regional late, I just want to go to bed, what I'll do either at the airport or on the plane if I have Wi-Fi, or right before bed after submitting my list, is I'll just go through either online tournaments or the most recent major and look at the lists from the top players, and I'll just try to memorize what those lists are, what to expect, because a lot of these players, at least in day 1 of regionals, they're not great. I know that's kind of crazy to say, but there's a high chance that they are net decking. Maybe they switched a couple cards around, which actually could be to their advantage, right? But for the most part, once you see some familiar cards from the deck list that you've memorized, then you can almost predict what they're going to play, what their paths to victory are, what their prize mapping is, things like that, and you can play even better plays. You can play even a better game against them knowing their list. So that's a little bit of background in net decking. Obviously, there's some good net decking. You got a proven list. That list is typically very good. You know, it's probably have many hours of testing by many great players backed into it. So you know that when you're net decking a list, it's going to be very good and a good representation of the archetype at that moment. But like I said, try not to net deck. What I do, I net deck, I'm going to be honest, but I net deck and then I change the list up a little bit, right? Or maybe a lot, depending on what I feel the meta should be. And if you notice, if you look at these lists, a lot of these lists are like 90% the same, right? And maybe up to like 12 cards are different, right? That's why a new format's so exciting, because that 10% that's different becomes like 20, 30, 40%, even more, based on what people are finding, their conclusions they're having for what the skeleton should be like or the consistency core should be like. So now I'm seeing a lot of people trying to move away from Arven, because Arven, it's strong, but it really doesn't do much beyond those starting turns. And if you go first, it's typically not a card you want to play because you're really slow at that point, right? If you're on your second turn of the game using TM Evo, then your opponent can easily mount a comeback, or not a comeback, but like a aggressive strategy that can totally push the game in their favor. Especially also with Budew, because if you're Arvening, if you go first and then your second turn you play Arven, most of the time you're going to be under Budew lock, and Arven's just going to be like, here's a tool. And no tool right now is good enough to play a supporter for. So a lot of decks are starting to move away from Arven, and you kind of saw that amongst the top decks. They didn't really play as many Arvens. Like Andrew Hedrick, everyone's playing 4 Arven and Dragapult because they're like, oh yeah, that's what Dragapult's always been. But Andrew Hedrick and his crew, they tested a bunch and they said, maybe 2 Arven's better. You know, Arven's not really necessary to the strategy of this deck anymore. So that's like how they're a step ahead. But like I said, net decking, if you're kind of on crunch, it's fine. Just remember that people are going to know what you're playing and what your counts are and stuff like that. But at least you got a good list to play. So I want to also talk about, let's start getting specifics. That was a little bit of a tangent there. I know you guys want to know about the archetypes and where I think they stand, stuff like that. So just kind of quick little high-level overview, the winners and the losers of both Atlanta and Monterey. So for my winners, I have number 1 at Gholdengo. I think Gholdengo is in a great spot. I think the best placing Gholdengo at Monterey was Caleb Rogerson in top 4. Now he played Gholdengo Dragapult, which makes a lot of sense. Dracloak is the best single prize draw support Pokemon in the format right now. And then if you play against a Cornerstone, you're just like, all right, here's a Dragapult, right? You can knock out the Cornerstone, don't have to worry about the Cornerstone. And like I said, that Blissey Walls deck is in the finals right now, and they play Cornerstone with a bunch of Monkey-Dories. And so, good thing that Dragapult's in there. You got a little bit more of a shot. I actually think that matchup is favorable for Gholdengo, because Gholdengo can blow up the Blisseys, and then it can kill the Cornerstones. But if Gholdengo didn't play the Dragapult line, Cornerstone really give it a lot of trouble. To piggyback off of that, Pult is also a big winner in my book. I think Pult is doing very well as you could have guessed, pre-rotation, into post-rotation. And it's just so robust of a strategy. You have the slower Pult that uses a lot of Budews, and then you have the Pult that uses Dusknoir. And I was actually trying out a Pult that played no Dusknoir, but played like Free Giraffe and Cornerstone, and it was good. It just was bad into other Dragapult decks, especially Dragapult that played Dusknoir, because Pult really is like one of the biggest anti-wall deck. Obviously, you have Melodic, but Melodic is so bad into literally everything else that Melodic's not great of a card. So Pult doesn't really care if you put down a Melodic. It can just Dusknoir, or it can just Ursaluna it, right, later, right? So Pult is in a really good spot. I think Gholdengo gives Pult a little bit of trouble, but Pult's attack is so efficient against Gholdengo that Pult's never really out of it. It's not. I wouldn't say that Gholdengo is a bad matchup for Pult. Some people might feel it's favorable. Some people might feel it's even. Some people might feel it's unfavorable. I think it's about even if both players are at the same level of skill and both decks are drawing well. Another winner is Walls. Obviously, like Walls is in the finals, but I think before Atlanta, I said I don't like Walls because the meta's not defined. Now that the meta's defined, you can form a Walls deck a lot easier, and I do think, well, one, Monkey Dory's crazy. Two, Cornerstone's pretty nice right now. I do also like Free Giraffe. I think Free Giraffe is relatively underplayed right now. I think there is a Walls deck out there, and it's in finals in Monterey right now. So I guess I'm kind of just saying the same thing over and over. But I think Walls got a lot better because, well, the meta became more defined. But let's get into losers of Atlanta and Monterey. Biggest loser I thought was Terapagos. I don't think that deck's really doing what people said it would. It just feels really weak into Dragapult. Doesn't really beat Guardy. It kind of runs out of steam late game and then loses to like an Iono and then like a kill on the Noctowl or the Hoot Hoot or whatever. It doesn't really one-shot anything either. It's just kind of, it falls short in many different ways, and I think that really adds up for the deck and therefore makes it not so great. And of course, I will admit that Zoroark is not a good deck. I was really big on Zoroark prior to Atlanta. I obviously switched to Gardevoir. Gardevoir was a good switch. I got 40th at Atlanta, which is one of my better placements in recent memory at a large tournament, and I was only one win away from ASIM, so it was a pretty good run, and I'm glad I switched to Guardy because I think if I played Zoroark, I would have not even made day 2. So Zoroark is good against Guardy, and it's fine against Dragapult. I don't think it's great against Dragapult. I think it's fine against Dragapult. But the problem with Zoroark is it needs a little too many pieces to work well. And for that reason, it's not great. Now, I know Zoroark EX itself is a good card. It won Atlanta with it being played in Gardevoir. And it's been played in Archaludon, and I've seen it played in Gholdengo, and I'm sure you'll see play in other decks later on. So itself is a good card, but the deck itself, I'm not big on it. All right, so discussed the winners, the losers. There are some cards, though, right now that I think are really strong, that people may be playing, may not be playing. The first card I want to say is Airy. I think Airy is a really strong spot right now with all the Gholdengo running around. I would consider playing Airy in a Dragapult deck because you throw Dragapults at Gholdengo all game, right? And then you Airy them when their hand's big, and if you hit 2 superior energy retrievals, you basically win the game, because at that point Gholdengo can't one-shot anything at that point. Honestly, like they're gonna have to use at least one to kill a Dragapult mid game. And if you like I said, if you get rid of 2, the chances that they get to 7 are so slim. That being said, if you do that play, make sure you don't have like a Fez on the board or anything, something they can gust and take their last 2 prizes with. But I think Aery's in a really good spot. And Aery's also good against like other things too. A lot of decks are starting to go more counter catcher. Aerying like a counter catcher and something else is very strong, especially if you're like Badoo locking them. I know it's like, well, why would you Badoo lock and then Aery them? Well, Badoo lock kind of holds it in their hand. They can't really do anything. Can't really play out of it. And there's a lot of items that a lot of decks want to play late game, right? No one wants, like, people don't want to, well, Gholdengo doesn't want to play SER early because it doesn't have energy in the discard. And Dragapult doesn't want to play counter catcher early because it's not likely to be behind in prizes that quick. So if you can get those out of their hand, it's really strong. I probably wouldn't play Aery early, but if you feel like it's a good time, it's an opportune time, you got a little hunch, you trust your gut, I think it could be solid little play that people aren't expecting. Another card, I actually have some of the cards here, is Genesect. I really like Genesect right now. I think Ace Nullifier, it stops, Unfair Stamp, Sparkling Crystal, Energy Search Pro, Prime Catcher, right? It stops Ace Specs, right? Those are extremely strong cards right now. If you play a deck with a lot of tools, I would definitely consider a Genesect, especially if you're finding that you have enough bench space. I legitimately think this could maybe fit in like Gholdengo, because Gholdengo, like a straight Gholdengo, I really haven't had problems with bench space. I usually have a couple open because I'm just throwing Gholdengos. I don't play that many Pokemon. And I usually play like a rescue board or something. So a rescue board could easily fit on this and give it free retreat and stuff like that. I don't know, but something to consider. Obviously, it was being played in the slower Dragapult deck that did pretty well at Atlanta, and it's very effective. It's very effective when your opponent doesn't really expect it, and you just drop it and you put a tool on it. So, like I said, there's another thing to net deck. If you're obviously playing like a slow Dragapult, they're gonna be like, well, they're likely playing like the Genesect in there, right? So I'll just use my Energy Search Pro now, because you're going to want to play an Arven next turn, not an Iono or something like that, right? So that's what I'm saying about Genesect, and I think this could be a really surprising card that can totally catch your opponent off guard. Another thing, and this is kind of a weird thing to call out, but Grand Tree. I really like Grand Tree right now. It's not being used in any decks that are doing well, but I think as maybe, this is probably a card for the future with other sets in the format, but I think this card is really strong. You got Search for it with Colress's Tenacity, and there's a lot of stage 2s now that are getting pretty used. Like Blaziken EX, I think is starting to look pretty promising. I know we're getting a Torchic with 70 HP in the Rocket set. So, and Pidgeot is like super good right now, but no one's playing it because it's a little slow. Grand Tree just gets it out, which is really nice. So I'm not sleeping on Grand Tree. I'm not saying go rush and try to make a Grand Tree deck. I don't think any of those decks right now are good, but if you don't have a Grand Tree, I would get one, and I would just keep it in the back of your mind when you're building decks for next set or a couple sets from now. I think this card's a sneaker. I think it's it's definitely a little diamond in the rough right now. And another card I really like, which Andrew Hedrick played, was Luxurious Cape. I think Luxurious Cape is really strong. It just protects your single prizers. So you can slap it on a Badoo, you can slap it on like a Kirlia, you can slap it on a Dracloak, you can slap it on a Dusk Noir. You can put it on Dusk Noir. You can put it on a lot of stuff, and it just kind of keeps things alive, right? Obviously, well, maybe you don't put it on Dusk Noir, right? Because, oh no, okay, sorry, I didn't read the card. it does not give your opponent an extra prize if you blow up Dusknoir with Dusknoir's ability. So it literally just gives Dusknoir 100 HP, and then you still give up 1 prize when you blow up Dusknoir. So it's pretty useful in very niche situations. Like if there's no bench barrier right now. I know Shaman's coming out next set, but right now there's no bench barrier. This is kind of a good bench barrier card, and usually you can play it to where you aren't going to give up 2 prizes easily with it on the field. You know, they're not going to target down a Budew with 130 when there's a Dragapult swinging for 206 damage counters every turn. So that's what it does. It just keeps your Budew alive, at least in Hedrick's list, and it's really interesting. So I wonder if people are going to start putting this in other things, and I think it's actually really strong. All right, so the first deck I wanted to highlight is the EVBox deck. I really enjoyed this deck. I actually, so this is a net deck. This is Jonathan Means' 12th place list. I actually got destroyed by Jonathan in round 9 of Atlanta. He absolutely destroyed me. It was this card. I was playing Guardy. This card with Angelite is so good against Guardy. It just keeps your Ralts off the board. You got to put 3 down. If you don't get 3 down, there's like, all right, Crispin, Angelite. It's like, okay. So I'm just going to show you the list. You probably already know it, but I'll lay it out. Also bear with me. I only have 1 Flareon. I tried to get 1 in. It didn't come in yet. So it's kind of hard getting the prismatic cards. They're just not available ever. So I haven't been able to open any packs or get anything. And the only difference I have from this list right now is the 80 HP Hoot Hoot. Since Dragapult's everywhere, I think this Hoot Hoot, at least 1, is good to include. I play Buddy Poffin in here, so you're going to need still the 70 HP. But there's a list that I play. There's another Noctowl list I'm going to feature here that plays all 80 HP Hoot Hoots because he doesn't play Buddy Poffin, and you can still get it with Fan Rotom. It just makes sense. Why would you play these 70 HP when you can play the 80s? Now I know, okay, yeah, they have 2 retreat, but you also play Latios, so you don't have to worry too much about them getting locked active. And I got 4 Noctowl here. Yeah, this is just Jonathan's list. It's just a couple changes. I thought their list was very good. I mean, it crushed me, like I said. So I'm just going to stick with it. Like I said, I net deck sometimes, and it's totally fine. I haven't put too much time into this list or this archetype, so I don't really know where to start. And I usually, like I said, when I net deck, I usually just start with what I think is the best example for the archetype, which is just the deck that did the best, or the deck list that did the best for that archetype. So here's the first deck I want to feature is EVBox. This is Jonathan Means' list. Minus 170 HP for an 80 HP Hoot Hoot. Everything else is the same. I'm a little sus on the Palpad. I'm not crazy about this card right now. Budew's everywhere. I don't think the game goes long enough really for Palpad to be used effectively. I understand that you can use it and then Noctowl later, but I feel like you're just winning more. It's a kind of a win more card. If you have time to like Palpad and then Noctowl again to get like another boss, you're probably solidly ahead already. So I'd be willing to cut this maybe for I don't know, like a third boss or another Ultra Ball or some consistency wise. But I'm a little sus on Palpad. I've been taking Palpad out of everything. Like I said, I haven't put too much time into testing this archetype specifically, so I don't really know what I would want or not want. But cards like Kieran and Briar are really important, so I wouldn't cut those. I know those are important because they were used very effectively against me. Jonathan used those very well. But yeah, that's EVBox. This is one deck I think is kind of underplayed, underexplored. I think Sylveon is really strong right now, especially into Dragapult. It just eats Dragapult. I mean, you get the Clefairy EX down. Your Magical Charms are one-shotting it. If they don't have it out, then you're just Angeliting either the Dusknoirs or the Dreepies. Whatever they put energy on, you can just Angelite. and then you're just like, I'm going to swing with Magical Charm and just start taking prizes. It's really, really strong. Flareon is there for Goldango. It just kills, it one-shots a Goldango and then accelerates energy to other attackers. So if you have 2 Flareons on the board, Goldango is just like, uh-oh. You can also Angel Light 2 Goldango off the board, so they need to have 3 down. So you can just like Angel Light, and then the next turn they'll kill your Sylveon, because I think it's weak to, Sylveon's weak to metal, so they're going to easily kill that. And then you're just like, next turn I'm just going to Flareon. So it has a lot of modes that you can play the deck, which I think right now is very, very good. So that's EV Box. I'm going to go on to the next deck, which is Dragapult, my Dragapult list. Dragapult is far and beyond, I think, the best. I know it's the best deck. So I will come back with my Dragapult list, and yeah. So this is my list for Dragapult. It's pretty similar to Andrew Hedrick's list. I took out the Arven for Morty. I don't know if that is exactly good, but like I was saying earlier, Arven's kind of slow right now. And if you're under Badulak, which is a big problem in the mirror, Arven really is not doing enough for you. So I'd much rather draw cards. So I'm playing Morty instead of Arven. But I do really like a lot of the inclusions anyway. So once again, yeah, kind of neck deck, but I'm starting to change it up a little bit. I've had more games with this deck than EV Box. So, but let me just lay out the list really quick, and then we'll talk about it. Let's see, a Brock Scouting. I took out a Jacques for Brock Scouting. I do play an Airy. I'm trying that out right now. I haven't played enough against enough Goldango to really use it, which I figured would be the case. When you're not playing against Goldango, Airy's kind of a dud card, and that's kind of the issue with Airy. That's always been the issue with Airy. But I think it should flip the matchup well enough to where it's warranted, especially since Goldango is starting to get very popular. So, but here's the list. Like I said, it's very similar to Hedrick's list. I have an Airy, I have a Brock Scouting, 1 Jock. I do like the Dusknoir line. Sorry, this is over here, by the way. 2 Badoo, of course. Hluch is crazy. I only play 2 Dragapult. I figured since you're playing 4 Ultra Ball and 3 Stretcher, you're likely always finding it. If you prize 1, though, it could get a little dicey. I could add 1 later, depending on the reps I have with this deck. I will be playing this deck a lot, but for right now, I think this is the best deck in the format. Dusclops, Dusknoir, I cannot understate how good this combo is with Blood Moon Ursaluna and Iono. It's just such a solid deck, so robust. Yeah, there's no Crispin, there's no Crystal, there's no EXP share. You don't really need it. You just Badoo, and then you attach energy to 2 different Drag Cloaks, and eventually you'll get a Dragapult out. And once you get 1 Dragapult out, the next one you start building up, and the next one comes out. You just start throwing Dragapult at them. You can counter catcher, slow things down. That's why they play 3. And it's always it doesn't seem like enough, but it's always been enough for Dragapult to slow the game down and mount a comeback. It's a very big comeback deck, but it is the strongest deck in the format. So this is my Guardy list. Guardy is my favorite deck in the format right now. I think it's nearly as strong as Dragapult. Honestly, if I'm going to be frank, there's no deck that's ahead of any other deck in terms of what the best deck is. I think right now, in my opinion at least, it's Guardy, Dragapult, and Goldango. But none of those decks are really that far ahead of the other. Some people, it comes down to preference, in my opinion. For me, I still think Dragapult is like up here, but Guardy is like right here, and Gholdengo is like right here. They're so close to each other that you can't really go wrong with playing in any of those three, or maybe some counter pick, right? So that being said, let's look at the Guardy list. This is very similar to the one I played at Atlanta. I made a couple changes based on what Brent decided to play in Monterey. And of course, like what I experienced as well in Atlanta. Hopefully I know I've kind of just distributed some stuff weirdly. Those are the Pokemon and the energy, and then we'll go trainers here. This is very similar to what I played. I did not play Squawk in my list I highlighted on my Metafy prior to Atlanta. That was a last minute change, and it was actually very good. I was kind of skeptical at Squawk because it kind of sits on the bench, and I'm not crazy about that. It is pretty annoying to have a two-prizer that's essentially dead on the bench the rest of the game after you use it, but it did offer a lot of consistency, and it saved my butt a lot from mediocre starts, which is really important. So this is my list. I'm not playing Zoroark. I wanted more space. Zoroark actually takes up a good amount of space because you need to play like a Turo or like a switching card, and then if you're playing the Henry Chow version, you're playing like 1 Zora, 2 Zoroark EX. That's like at least 4 slots for that. I'd rather just have, the Bravery Charms, the 3 Munkidori. That's actually what Brent played. I think 3 Munkidori is so good. Brent agrees, of course. I only play 1 Badoo. I think other Guardy players have been playing 2. I was okay with 1. A lot of decks are playing a lot of supporters now. Guardy isn't the slowest deck. It has rare candies, so you don't need to stall the game too long. But 1 Badoo is definitely great. I don't need 2. This list is really tight, actually. So I think 1, you get by with 1 for sure. The only card I'm kind of looking to add in is a Turo. I really like Turo. Henry Brand posted a video talking about why Tord plays Turo, and it's because of permeance. And I totally agree. Turo is really strong right now. Being able to like Turo Fez off your bench, or even the Squawk, of course, is really nice. It can throw a wrench in your opponent's prize mapping, that can be game winning. And I kind of just like Turo because it heals. You just beam up something. If they're like stacking damage with a Munkidori, you just Turo it, and they're behind. That's like a 2-turn strategy possibly that they just lost all that time that they spent setting up for a knockout. So Turo could be coming in. I'm not quite sure what I would cut right now. Maybe I'd cut an Artisan, but I really like Artisan. It's when I'm playing such a low ball search, having 2 Artisans is really nice. Came in clutch a lot. So, but that's my Guardy list. Like I said, one of the most powerful decks. I really like it. Probably keep playing it, but yeah. So here's my Raging Bolt EX deck. I didn't neck deck this one. This one was kind of just, I created it. I don't think this deck is too hard to build. It's pretty straightforward on what you should play and inclusions that you should have. So let's take a look. Let me lay it out really quick, and I'll talk about my choices for my inclusions and things like that. I do feel that Raging Bolt is still very good. It's bad into Guardy, of course, but it beats Gholdengo, and it's pretty good into Dragapult. And it just kind of can beat anything, to be honest. It's just a very strong, fast, powerful deck that is pretty consistent through and throughout. So here's my list. I have a couple weird inclusions in here that I haven't really seen in other Raging Bolt lists. First and foremost, I played 2 Bravery Charm. Some Raging Bolt lists don't play any tools. I really like the Bravery Charm. It helps your Dragapult matchup. It kind of shores it up for you, which is really nice. Dragapult used to play Jamming Tower. They're taking it out now. So Bravery Charm really disrupts a lot of damage placement and sort of plans that they have to take multiple prizes or multiple knockouts on a single turn. That's typically how I beat Raging Bolt with Dragapult, is I line up a 4-prize turn and they're at like 3 prizes, and then I end the game with a Ursaluna. Bravery Charm kind of prevents that because they usually have a pretty obvious mapping on where they're going to do their damage and things like that. So you know where to put the Bravery Charm. Just watch out because this list does play Jamming Tower, so make sure you don't play your own Jamming Tower and shut off your Bravery Charms. For our ancient attackers that are single prize, we have Slitherwing. This is for Pikachu EX. It's not as abundant now, but it's still around. So you absolutely get destroyed by it if you don't have a Slitherwing. And I also really like this Raging Bolt. Thunderburst Storm is super strong into a Dragapult or a Guardy that has like a slower start. You can just go Thunderburst Storm, snipe the Kirlia, snipe the Dracloak, snipe the Dusclops, any sort of thing on the bench that they're trying to build up. You can just Thunderburst Storm, because a lot of these stage 2 decks are starting to go the slower version that's just more consistent and robust rather than a faster version, and this little Raging Bolt really punishes that. This card is very good right now in the format. I also play an Iron Bundle. Some of them don't play Iron Bundle, some of them do. I really just liked Iron Bundle. It helps you if they have one Badoo on the field and you have a knockout. It helps you take a knockout on something more important than killing a Badoo, which is really nice, and it can actually really slow your opponent down and hurt them. Other than that, 3/3 Hoot Noctowl. I only play the 80 HP because I don't play any Buddy Poffins, so I don't really need to search for Hoots. I just search for them with Fan Rotom. And then an Energy Retrieval, sometimes they play that, sometimes they don't. I really like Energy Retrieval. And for supporters, as you play Iono, but I also play Judge. Judge is really nice. It just kind of hurts them early if you have the agency to play it. But it's also another disruption supporter. Sometimes these lists don't play disruption supporters, and if your opponent figures that out, they can do a lot of damaging plays. They can play around it. They can do a lot of things that can just totally put you in a bind and make you basically lose the game. So I do like the 2 disruption supporters. No Palpad. I know I said earlier I was playing Palpad in EVBox, but I really don't like Palpad right now. I think it's just kind of mid. So no Palpad. I just put another supporter in with Judge. And yeah, if you can rip a Judge early, it can put you way ahead. But that's pretty much it with Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt is like the aggro deck I think you should play. It's fast, it's powerful, it beats some of the top decks right now, and it's what I would play if I felt like playing a basic deck or like a Noctowl deck right now. Beyond EVBox, I want to try EVBox because it's interesting, but Bolt is definitely tried and true, strong. So after this, I'm going to go to Gholdengo. It's my last list. It's actually, I saved the best for last. It's really interesting, so I'll be back in a sec. All right, so this is the last deck I'm going to highlight today. This is my Gholdengo list. It's inspired from the list that the Minnesota players played in Atlanta. I think Caleb Patton was the best placing of that group, and I really like their take on it, and I wanted to try it out myself. So here we are. I'll lay it out for you guys so you can see just what I'm talking about. It is a little bit of a departure from what Gholdengo typically looks like, and for that reason, some people might look at it and say, I don't know about that. I guarantee you it's not terrible. It's actually pretty good. I did play at a League Cup. I got 10th at the League Cup. I missed top 8, but I hit some bad variants. I had multiple games, and it's best of one. I had multiple games where I just drew pass, and then they knocked me out. So I went 4-2 really fast, and I was just like, great. And 4-2, unfortunately, I was on the bubble. I didn't get in. There's only one 4-2 that made it, and I was the third best 4-2. So it kind of stunk, but that's okay. Also, these Gimmighoul's, they're all supposed to be Surging Sparks. I haven't been able to, just like with Prismatic, I haven't been able to open much Surging Sparks because I haven't been able to find any in stores. And I do have 2 boxes, but I'm not going to open those for 3 commons. So I'm going to try to find them at like a hobby shop in the bulk boxes. But for right now, just think these are all for Surging Sparks because that's far and beyond the best Gimmighoul. All right, so here's where it gets a little fancy. So I play Charcadet Ceruledge line with the Briar. This is for Mirror. So if they get the first 2 prize knockout, and say their board is all 1 prizers, you go second, you get the first Gholdengo out with a evolution. They don't get a 2 prize knockout, you get 1 prize knockout, and then they get a 2 prize knockout, and essentially the prize race is going to be you being behind by 1 prize the rest of the game. Ceruledge shores that up with the Briar play on another Gholdengo, and will help you in that situation in Mirror, which actually happens a good amount. And then for draw power, because I know that we've seen Gholdengo Pult do well, we have a 2-2 line of Zoroark. So in the spirit of Zoroark Guardy, we're playing Zoroark Gholdengo. It is actually so cool, and the way that they described it to me is, why aren't we playing Dunsparce? Well, because Dunsparce just draws cards and shuffles itself back in, and it's not actually thinning your deck. It's actually annoying because you have to reestablish a Dunsparce after that. Zoroark stays on the bench. It is a 2 prizer, but it has a lot of HP. You play 2 Turo, a Switch, and a rescue board. So it typically does not get caught in the active. They will try to boss it up, and you're just like, okay, fine, I'll Arven for Switch, or I'll Arven for rescue board, attach, retreat. It's not a big deal. And it turns every single card into draw 2, no matter what card it is. It's really nice. I've seen people play Varoom. Obviously, people are playing the Drakloak, and people play the Dunsparce, and some people just play straight Gholdengo. Zoroark, in my opinion, has been the most robust and stable form of draw support in the format, and I'm trying it in here, and it really hasn't. I know it kind of looks a little clunky, kind of all over the place, but Gholdengo is never clunky. It really hasn't been too big of an issue, and I've really liked it. So that's kind of my Gholdengo list. I will say I think Gholdengo is one of the best decks right now available. I also want to try the Bodhi list with just 4 Gholdengo and then the little Gholdengo and just Monkey Bundle Fez. That does seem also like a good way to play the deck. And this deck is more geared toward the Cornerstone, because the Ceruledge also gets through Cornerstone. That's kind of your Cornerstone counter, right? No ability, just one shots it if you have a bunch of energy in the discard. It maxes out at 270, by the way. It's pretty easy to kill a Cornerstone with Ceruledge, but I haven't seen much Cornerstone floating around, and that really makes me want to try out Bodhi's list instead of this one in particular. However, if Cornerstone does come roaring back, I would likely switch to this or Gholdengo Pult. What I'm trying to say, though, is Gholdengo is super versatile right now. It's very strong. It hits really hard. And I believe it is the best deck overall right now. So I'm going to keep playing Gholdengo. This is the list I've been rolling with and I've been doing well with. Like I said, I kind of bubbled out of a cup yesterday, but I had some bad variance. If I had drawn a little bit better, I definitely would have gotten at least 5 wins. So that's it. Those are the 5 decks that I wanted to cover with my meta checkup. If you guys like the meta checkup, please let me know. I want to try to start doing these after every major, just to see. Well, once again, like I said, just to see like what I think is good, how I think about the meta, how I look at cards in the card pool and say, oh, like with Aerie, like Aerie's really strong right now. Let's try to fit Aerie into decks that could use it, could enjoy it, and I don't know. What do you guys think? Just let me know. Leave a comment. You can always message me at Jace_TCG on Twitter. I will return messages whenever I see them. And yeah, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.